Wine had two sides. One, the sweet and lovely girl she was, and the other was the hideous celebrity she was in front of the world. She had to keep her calm in front of the cameras as all of them faced her, and the whole crowd cheered her congratulations. She was sweating, breathing heavily as she looked around with a huge smile as the man made her won the gold medal. She was a national athlete, expert in shooting sport, and had won many gold medals. A successful athlete with a successful future. But her only regret was not seeing her boyfriend in the crowd of people cheering for her. He never appeared. However, every time she stepped out of the venue, he would be there waiting for her with a huge gift and open arms every time. She smiled and ran towards him. He held a huge flower bouquet, probably bigger than her whole existence, on his one shoulder and wrapped his arm around her waist with other arm and picked her up. Jungkook, congratulations, you like to surprise me every time. She giggled and kissed his cheek, eyes falling on the bouquet, and got off him. Ryan, this is huge. He always supported her dreams, but she really wished one day he would come inside and sit in the crowd and cheer for her. The only reply she got from him was he was a camera shy and would get extremely uncomfortable. She never pushed it afterwards. Junko was leaning against the car now, Wine standing in between his legs and his arms around her waist, leaving no space between the two. Jungkook, I might be busy in the evening, but I'll make sure you won't sleep without me. He knew she demanded attention on the days she had a match. Wine, that's a promise, John. He kissed her a yes and pushed her inside the car, all the while never breaking away from the kiss. The two spent the next whole hour together till Jungkook dropped her off at home and left for his work. It was night when Jungkook returned home as promised. He placed the cupcakes he brought for her on the kitchen island and called her out. Receiving no answer, he checked the room and washroom alone. He took out his phone to call her when his eyes fell on the open door of his study room. Why never entered there before? Why was it even unlocked? His step slowed down as he advanced towards his study room. Chills creeped up his spine when his eyes fell on the papers scattered on the floor, alongside a gun, and there she was, on the floor, staring at those papers, with tears dried on her face. He took a step forward and halted when she looked up towards him. Her eyes were red with pain and crying, and hair going in all directions. Let's get you out of here. He took a step forward again. Vine picked up the gun and pointed it towards him. She was shaking in rage and betrayal as she stood up holding the wall. Her eyes teared up again, which angered her even more. How? How dare you hide your identity from me? A mafia? You're a mafia? I thought my boyfriend is a businessman. She yelled. Jungkook, Princess, I never meant to lie to you. Let's talk. Her grip tightened against the gun. She was a professional shooter. He knew she wouldn't miss the target. However, none of it scared him more than her condition, where he put her in. Wyan, there is nothing to talk. You betrayed me. I feel like the person I loved doesn't even exist. She cried out. He couldn't take it anymore, so he ignored the gun and marched towards her. The loud bang of the bullet escaping the gun once again stopped him on his feet. The bullet flew past his hair by an inch distance. It was so close he felt the heat against his ear. Wyan, stop there, she cried, feeling ever so miserable. She hated how much she loved this guy who did nothing but make a fool out of her and her love for him. I was scared, he admitted. There is nothing in this world that brings fear in me, except for the thought of being away from you. You hated everything related to violence, and that's what I was built of. Ryan, you are selfish. For your happiness, you thought betraying me was okay. Jungkook, I might have been a worse person. Everything you found out about me might be true, but what I was towards you was true. I never failed my emotions towards you. I loved you enough to fear losing you. Ryan shook her head. She felt even more miserable because his words started to have an effect on her. She held the gun with both hands, never stepping back. What Jungkook did next choked the sob out of her, her heart wrenching, and she felt like she couldn't breathe anymore. He got down on his knees, eyes never leaving her. She never saw him in such vulnerable state before. Jungkook, if you want to leave, you can, but only after you put a bullet through my head. I don't think I'll be able to live without you anyways, so I might rather die right here, by your hands, before you decide to leave me. Ryan, stop! Stop, get up! She cried. The gun in her hand shook miserably as she stepped back. The only thought of shooting him was not letting her breathe. Jungkook, I had to live every day with the guilt that I was lying to you. So I made sure every emotion you felt through me was never a lie. So maybe I could have a little bit of pride in our relationship. She fell down on her knees. Gun slipped out of her hands and body leaning against the table, having no energy anymore. Ryan, get up. A mafia is not supposed to weaken up before anyone. That will only get you killed. He ended the distance between the two and pulled her in his embrace. She didn't fight back. His grip so tight, every thought of losing her was so dreadful. She cried, and he kissed her head multiple times as he repeated how sorry he was and would never lie again. If his enemies saw the mighty John on his knees, crying it for a girl, first, that would take them a year to convince themselves that it was real and not a lie. Second, you can't exist in such ruthless world if you have a weakness or ever show it in front of anyone. He would have died already. He brushed his hands against her cheeks, wiping every tear that left her eyes. Jungkook, I love you so much. I'm never letting you go as long as I am alive. Ryan, don't ever talk about dying again. She cupped his cheeks and leaned in, kissing him, which he returned without wasting a beat. Hands wrapping around her waist, he picked her off the floor and walked towards his bedroom. Placing her down on the bed, he never once pulled away from her as he moved her in his embrace. Ryan, did you refrain from appearing in my matches because there were cameras and people would identify you? Jungkook. No and yes. Not because you would know the truth, but because you might get criticized for having a boyfriend who can easily get you on the top. They might dock your skills, and I can't allow that. Ryan, don't lie to me again, Jungkook. I really love you. He searched her with a kiss and promised to never repeat such miserable mistake again.